So I can imagine that how Descartes came up with his famous statement, cogito ergo sum, was the result, I presume, of some kind of a debate that was going on in philosophy circles and psychology, the world of psychology. How do we actually know we exist? How would you prove to yourself or to anybody else that you actually exist? And his response was, I know I exist because I think. Now, I put it to you that if you decided to write a novel and you create all kinds of characters, and in the middle of this novel you create a debate between two of the characters, and it's a philosophical debate, and one character asks the other, how do you know you exist? And the other character says, I know I exist because I think. Now, is the character actually thinking in the novel, or is that just a projection that you as the author are putting words into characters' mouth, but the characters are fictitious? And therefore, for the character to say, I know I exist because I think, it's a fiction. The actual character in the pages is from your imagination. So does that character actually think? Yeah, is he alive? Does he really have existence because he says, I think? Or you go to your dreams at night. When you dream at night, and you people your dreams with all of these characters, and all these characters have, they've got traits and personalities, and they engage in dialogues of various kind. So suppose two of these characters, whom you've never met in real life, are having a philosophical debate, and one character says to the other, how do you know you exist? And the second character says, I know I exist because I think. And you wake up in the morning, and the characters are gone. So did that character exist? Was he real? He thought he was real because he was able to think, and he proved to himself he was real because he said he could think. But he's gone. Where has he gone to? So does thinking prove existence? I think it's very difficult to make that claim. Not everything that thinks exists, and not everything that exists thinks. Rocks don't think, but they're real, I think. So existence and thought, you can't actually make synonyms of these. So how would you prove to yourself that you actually exist? I think there's only one test. Personally, there's only one test. Something only exists, something is only real if it is a manifestation of God. That is the only criterion, the only touchstone for existence. Something only exists if a manifestation of God. And God is not defined primarily by his ability to think. God is defined by her ability to love. And so the ultimate test of existence is love. You only exist to the extent that you love. And it's not a binary operation. You either exist or you don't exist. It's a spectrum. You exist only to the extent that you love. And you do not exist to the extent that you do not love. That seems like a weird statement. I'm totally convinced that love is the only criterion by which you can judge whether or not you're real. You're real only if you love, and you're real only to the extent that you love. When you don't love, you do not exist, and to the extent that you're not loving, you do not exist. Now, non-existence does not mean that you can't be detected, or that non-existence can't have effects. Non-existence has huge effects. Now, this seems like it's totally contradictory. Let me try to unpack it a little bit for you. One of my favorite astrophysicists, I've mentioned several times, is an American astrophysicist called Bernard Heish. He's got this great theory of creation where he says, creation happens by subtraction. And the phrase he uses is, by limiting infinite possibilities, we create finite realities. Now, what does that statement mean? By limiting infinite possibilities, we create finite realities. And the image I use to explain this is, imagine we were in a movie theater, and there's a projections box up there where the clock is, and there's a screen in the front, and there's this brilliant white light shining on the screen. But it's blinding, we can see nothing in it. So in order to create some kind of images, we have to selectively occlude the white light. We run a celluloid film in front of it that selectively creates obstructions to the white light. And it's the obstructions we're actually looking at. We think that reality is the light that's missing. And so the part that's missing is the part we take to be real. We're looking at the images which are actually the result of the negation, obstruction, or obfuscation of the light itself. And we think that, the guy running across the street on the black horse, John Wayne, that's the real thing. It's not. That's the stuff that's not there. So we're actually looking and getting fascinated by what is not there, and we're ignoring the white light which is there. God is the white light. And we put all kinds of obstructions in front of God, and we act as if what happens, the images we are looking at and relating to, are real. They're not real. They do not exist. They're the absence of light. But the fact that they're absent of light doesn't mean we can't connect with them, or doesn't even mean that they don't have a huge effect on our life. They have a huge effect. So I'm totally convinced that the only criterion for existence is love. You exist if you love, and you exist only to the extent that you love. And when you don't love, you don't exist. And to the extent that you do not love, you do not exist, which does not mean that you're not having an effect on the self or the other or anybody else. And so Descartes didn't quite get it right. It's not about thinking, it's about loving.